Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Talk 20s podcast. I am delighted to be joined in the studio today by Jaymie Moran, who is the founder and CEO of Body Smart. And we're going to be talking today all about mastering your health in your 20s for living a long and very fulfilling life. Now, I know that this topic, and if we're going to be talking about weight loss and things like that, for some people, that might not be so helpful to hear right now. So if you are really interested in weight loss and talking about how to live a really healthy lifestyle, and you know that it would be good for your brain right now, keep listening. If not, there's plenty of other episodes that you can choose from Talk 20s, from finance to career, whatever it is. But this today, we're going to be talking about health so much. Full transparency here, we love bringing you guys free weekly content, but in order to do this, we work with different brand partners who you'll hear from in this episode, including an advertisement from Ozempic. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. So, Jaymie, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Amazing to have you here. I had to have that little bit at the beginning because I think the way we talk about health has changed, I think, probably so even when you started like Body Smart. And there's definitely a conversation right now where it's like, how do we look at health as a society and what's healthy and what's not? Because especially growing up in the female space, there is definitely like, you know, we've been conditioned by magazine covers and this and that to kind of look a certain way. And I think there's definitely a shift to more of like a body positivity movement. But I don't think that either of I think somewhere in the middle is like the healthy place to be, but the media love extremes, right?
Exactly.
What's your view on it?
I think being healthy like means different things to different people.
It does, yeah.
There's also like what's healthy on paper, which people can get a bit upset about if you talk about things like BMI or health markers. But it is something to pay attention to. You know, the data doesn't lie at the end of the day. And, you know, for me, I think everyone's empowered to make the choices that they want with their body. But for me, I want everyone to be able to live the healthiest and happiest life that they can have. And that means like feeling good, looking good for how you want to feel, and just putting yourself in a position where, yeah, you have energy, you have vitality, because, you know, with health, there are a lot of things that if you don't address it today, it will start to get harder over time. And then that can really start to impact your life in ways that you're not really expected for. And it leaves people in like a regretful place. And I really think as you get older, regret becomes poison. And it really starts to just affect your mental health in a really negative way. So sometimes it's, you know, trying to look at things and be like, hey, I need to just invest in parts of my health today, not only just to feel better today and tomorrow, but for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think it's also something that maybe we take for granted when we're in our 20s as well, because we think we've got so much of our lives to live, and probably many of us aren't experiencing loads of health problems right now, but it could be stuff that we're doing right now that will have those health implications on our life, you know, 30 years down the line. And a lot of what we talk about Talk 20s is like, what should we be doing like right now that should help us in the future? You know, we talk about pensions, very similar example, like that's helping future you. But I'm guessing that the way where this conversation will go is very much kind of what's the pension equivalent of looking after your health? Do you know what I mean? In the longer term.
So in your 20s, like in your teens and in your 20s, if you're really taking care of your health and you're not, the gap in terms of like how you will feel is actually quite little. You know, you've probably still got energy. You probably don't have like aches and pains. You probably haven't got any sort of like real like long-term health issues. As you start to get into your 30s, you'll notice that more. You'll be carrying possibly more excess weight. You would developed further unhealthy habits. You might start to get joint pain. You might be on some sort of medication. You get into the 40s, the gap becomes really wide. Some people actually don't even make it that far, and you know, or have got real health issues. 50s, again, if you've really abused your health up until your 50s, you might not make it to 50. And the same goes when you get to, you know, into your 60s. A lot of people at that point have started to lose their health span. So like your health span is going to be, you know, making sure that you've still basically got vitality, which is going to be you mobile and you maybe not on any sort of like medications. And for a lot of people, by the time they get to the 60s, especially in this country and the US, have lost parts of their mobility, and they're on either, you know, one or several different types of medications. And now the next like decade or two of their lives becomes quite miserable, you know, becomes really difficult. So even though right now in your 20s, you don't really notice it, actually, this is like the best time to build a foundation of health. And by building a foundation of health in your 20s, it just becomes easier to maintain that into your 30s, 40s and 50s. And then when you get into those 60s and 70s and 80s, those, you know, and it's really hard to think about that in your 20s, even in your 30s, to think like, oh, you know, what does my 60-year-old, how's my 60-year-old self going to feel? But just like saving for a pension, invest in that time into your health now. Not only will it make you feel better today with your physical health and your mental health, it will, you're pouring into that pot for when you get into your later years.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to dive in and chat more about this topic. But first of all, tell our listeners a little bit more about you. The first way we kind of do this is by asking you to show us a picture from this time last year to give us a little bit of an insight into your life. You got a picture you can show us from what you were doing this time last year?
Yeah, so this actually sounds super extravagant because I can live quite a boring life at times. So this is me and one of my best mates, Simon. We're actually sat in Bali working on our laptops.
Whoa.
So yeah, we
love a business owner that can work from anywhere. Amazing.
Which was
business partner Simon?
No, so Simon was actually the first guy that come to work for us at Body Smart. And he used to work for the council, and we offered him a job, and we didn't even really make like £2,000 a month. We offered him a job on like minimum wage, and I'd only text him. He rang me like 40 minutes later saying he quit his job, and I was like, dude, we haven't even agreed anything. We were like 24 at the time. So yeah, he's been with us for the past 7 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you started this business at 24?
23.
23.
Yeah.
Sorry, 23.
Yeah, 23. Yeah. Started a business at 23. Been doing it for 9 years now. We specifically help women over 30 lose anywhere between 15 and 60 pounds in under 6 months. So weight loss is like the promise and the outcome that we offer, but it's actually often just a positive side effect of what we help the women that we coach do. A lot of people sign up to a weight loss program thinking like I need to lose weight, and it's actually everything else around that, whether that's becoming more self-aware, looking at your movement habits, looking at your eating habits, just becoming more skilled in a lot of parts of these parts, more self-aware, any emotional eating habits, any traumas or issues that you've carried from childhood or bad habits, and it's just peeling back the onion, and learning how to keep your promises to yourself, like a lot of the stuff women have done in the past, because typically our clients are mid-40s, and that's like we actually call our typical client Amanda. So she's called Amanda. She's 44. She's been struggling with her weight her whole life, and she's been struggling, since she was in her teens. Maybe been on diets, seeing all the magazines, being on an average of 126 diets.
Wow.
So it just shows you like how difficult
And it's like that mindset of like, I'll start again Monday sort of thing.
Yeah. And also it's like you start to think you're the problem. Like it must be me. Why can't I find success with this? And in reality, and we're huge on personal responsibility and taking ownership for where you are. But a lot of the times, these plans that have been marketed to women and sold to women have set them up to fail. It's the crash diets, it's the detoxes, it's the 5-2 diet or not eating all day. And women, it's like destroying their metabolic health. It's ruining the hormones. It's making them hungry. It's making them doubt themselves, and it's causing them to actually gain more weight in the long haul as well. Because you do something super extreme for 2 weeks, you can't sustain it. You then binge, then you blame yourself, and then you think you're like off this quote unquote diet now. But we're never off a diet. A diet is the foods that we habitually eat, and we're on a diet till the day we die. And unfortunately, when people revert back and go through that, it typically, you might go back to your old way of eating for a certain period of time, but because your health is something that you are living with every single day, it comes up again. And this is why women continue to keep trying. But yeah, I love what we do because it helps women in such an empowering way, and it gets them to a place where they feel so free within themselves, and allows them to go and actually tackle other things in their lives. But the weight that you see that it carries for these women, like we've had ladies sign up in their like early 70s, and I love the fact that they've got a growth mindset enough that like I'm gonna nail my health in my 70s, but I'm also extremely saddened by like, shit, this woman's struggled with herself till she was 70. You know what I mean? So
well, hopefully our listeners listening to this podcast, if that is something that they've struggled with, hopefully this will be a mini masterclass in terms of thinking about how you can maybe perhaps reprogram or think about the ways that we have been exposed to diet culture and all of those different things, and actually put some good things in place. What's the first thing you do with a woman who's like, I really want to lose weight, I've just signed up to your program? What's the first thing that you will look at?
Yeah, so we like to, have you heard of the analogy, the rocks to pebbles in the sand?
No.
So if you were to have a, like let's say a glass, if we were to put like 3 big rocks in it, that would take up the most space inside the glass. So they're like the big rocks, the big important things. Then after that, if you poured pebbles in, that would take up more space inside the glass. And then finally, you'd be like, oh, this glass looks full now, but you can pour the sand in. And often a lot of people focus when it comes to health on the sand, the supplements, the detoxes, the shiny objects to an extent. But really we want to focus on the rocks. The rocks are what's going to move the needle the most on.
Okay. I like that analogy. That's really cool. I've not heard that.
No?
Really cool. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, so when you focus on the rocks, you get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So and sometimes it can be really simplistic. So, we'll look at somebody's diet and typically a lot of the women that we coach are having like high fat, high carbohydrate, maybe high sugar diets, maybe not enough protein. So we'll just do something as simplistic as get them to maybe start tracking the calories, and there's a lot of friction with people tracking food and tracking calories. We just tell everyone, like, it's not a forever process. This is a skill. Some people have learned this skill from their childhood. They've learned how to manage the hunger and fullness cues. They know how to portion control. They stop eating when they're full. And they've got like great awareness around food. If you've never done that or not grown up like that, you may not have this awareness. So when somebody like hands you a plate of food, you could be like, how many calories do you think's in that? And they might go, oh, 500. And it's like, yeah, 2,000. So it's like, there's a foot, and if you try and look at this, we always try and use money as an analogy. That would be like going into a shop and just buying stuff off the hangers or off the rails and not checking the price. So tracking food really allows you to just raise your awareness around food, what's in food. And we'll often just get clients to track the calories and increase the protein intake. So it's as simplistic as that, and we can start to take further steps with nutrition further on. By getting more protein, you'll feel more full. You'll recover better from any movements or workouts. It'll make your nails thicker. It'll make your hair thicker. The amount of clients we've had who've had like brittle nails, hairs falling out, or like thinning of the hair, and they literally start eating more protein, and within a couple of weeks that's changed, which is amazing. So that's like on the nutritional side of things. We'll keep it. Have you heard of the KISS method?
I feel like you're going to give me loads of analogies in this podcast. Go on.
So KISS is keep it stupid simple.
Yeah,
that's it. And that
keep it simple, stupid.
Or keep it either way. Yeah, that's the one. You have heard that one. Yeah.
I think you said keep it stupid, simple.
Keep it stupid, simple. Same thing, right? Yeah, it's still a double S.
Keep it stupid.
Keep it stupid, simple.
What does it stand for?
Just exactly
just
that.
Like keep it simple.
Yeah, just basically keep it simple, and that's what you want. Like, often nowadays online, it's basically like take this detox. Take these 15 crocodile pills, spin backwards 15 times, and you'll lose weight. It's like it's just like ridiculous thing. Put like lemon in your water. Everything just seems to be like it's the more confusing it seems. Like that must be why I'm not losing weight or seeing success.
Very true.
Versus if you go, hey, like we're just gonna like look at manage and raise your awareness. So literally, it's what gets measured gets managed. So if you just literally started measuring your food. By proxy of just having more awareness, you would likely start either making more positive decisions around the foods that you're eating, and possibly start losing weight. So keep it there. We'll track the food, increase the protein, and then we'll just look at steps. So most people know how many steps they're doing nowadays. Most people are doing not enough, like 3,000 to 4,000 is probably like the average in the UK. By taking your steps from 3,000 to 4,000 a day up to 8,000, you decrease all-cause mortality by 50%. So that's basically dying from anything, which is huge. And then not only that, you will massively speed up your metabolism. So just by increasing your overall activity, everyone thinks, I need to go to the gym 7 times a week. Like no one's going to probably got the time to go to the gym 7 times a week. So just by increasing your daily steps, you will be burning a hell of a lot more calories. So straight away, we've been able to now like manage somebody's input a little bit better and raise the awareness around it and get them a bit more active. And this starts to just like change the balance of calories in and calories out, which is how we sort of lose weight. And often we'll get them working out. So a big one for us is strength training. Now, you might not worry about it too much in your 20s, but, the more muscle you have on your body, the better for longevity. It will speed up your metabolism. It will change, a lot of people push back about how you look, so the aesthetic side of it, but like there's nothing wrong with, if you want to train to look better or build more muscle or have a bit more definition on your legs or your bum or your arms, like there is nothing wrong with that. I think people get a lot of backlash online, like that's super vain, and it's like, well, when people feel like they look good, they feel good, and there's nothing wrong with that to an extent. There's obviously extremes in everything that we talk about, but yeah, getting people to do full body strength training, and that will be as simplistic as we need to go. We can start looking at water intake, sleeping habits, phone habits, emotional eating. We can start to get into that. But to begin with, we'll literally keep it as simple as like, let's get you moving more of your steps. Let's get you working out on a consistent basis. And that could be 2 30-minute workouts a week. Like that's it. And let's be more mindful around what we're eating.
When it comes to like, I guess the emotional side of eating as well, I mean, obviously the reason why we did a bit of a trigger warning at the beginning is because for a lot of young women that may be listeners of the podcast, many have struggled with, eating disorders, emotional eating, and all that comes with that. What have you learned from being in the business that you are about those kind of disorders and things like that? How is that impacting women in their like 30 plus?
It's huge. You know what I mean? Like eating disorders are so prevalent nowadays, and will wreak havoc on sort of your mental health in so many ways, and any physical health as well. You can't not be in the health and wellness space and have not had an experience with women with eating disorders or even men as well. So yeah, you again, like the advice that we're saying, like, tracking food for somebody who's, being obsessive around numbers and food before, that isn't going to be the right strategy for you. You know what I mean? And sometimes it might be a case of just finding other ways of controlling portions. And just, again, a huge part of it comes back to just self-awareness. Like you have to get to know yourself. You have to know what works for you and what doesn't. And that's with your food, with your movement, with what triggers you and doesn't. And yeah, you've got to just really work with your physiology and your psychology. For people who, because we don't work with women who have got eating disorders, we have it very clearly on our application, but we will recommend, depending on what type of eating disorder somebody has been struggling with, to go and either seek some sort of counselling or get some professional help, because often by going and doing that work first, it allows, if you do want to come work with us in the future, it just makes it so much easier for both parties.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think there was a great big uproar when calories were added to most menus, like in the UK. For some people, they found that incredibly helpful because they want to know what's going to be put in front of them, and maybe when they're making a choice about what they want to order, they are basing that off of calories because that works for them and their brain, and they aren't perhaps triggered by seeing those numbers. To them, it's numbers, and it provides them with information. But for other people, that can be incredibly triggering, and it can be like, it can be it can have such a negative impact. I think that's the problem with health, is it is so polarizing. And for some people, what's going to help them? I mean, a lot of the science is kind of there and obviously makes sense for everyone, but we all think about things and are coming from it in such different ways.
Yeah, it's... Again, I think when the calories are on a menu, I felt like that was like a net positive thing. And the main reason why is just like what I said before. It's like you wouldn't just go in and be like, oh, I'm going to order that burger. And then you get your receipt and it's like, oh, that was £100. What do you mean £100 for a burger? But like, you could have seen a burger on an option. It's like, oh, that burger's got 700 calories in it. I wasn't going to have a burger, but for 700 calories, I quite fancy that. Or it might make you choose your decisions a little bit more wisely, where it's like, oh, like there's 2 desserts there. One's 350 calories and one's 1,500 calories. It's like, am I going to get any more pleasure out of eating the 1,500 calorie dessert versus the 350 calorie one? So it just allows you to make more informed decisions. And that's actually empowering for a lot of people. I know there can be pushback, and there's always going to be a minority that struggles with everything, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to accommodate to support those people. But yeah, it's difficult for sure.
I think one of the things we haven't really, I guess, dived into here is like, why do you coach women when you're a guy? Hello, gorgeous listeners. If this is the first time you're tuning into the Talk 20s podcast, allow us to introduce you to our headline sponsors, Zopa Bank, home of the Smart Saver account. If you're a long-term fan of the podcast, you'll already know about Zopa's Smart Saver, which lets you save into personalized pots and boost your savings in exchange for a notice period to access your funds. The longest notice period is 95 days and offers the highest interest rate. To find out more about Zopa's Smart Saver, download the Zopa app. We need to tell you that you need to save a minimum of £1, and the interest is paid monthly and is subject to variation. On with the show.
Yeah, that's a question I get.
Did you get that a lot?
So, yeah, many times.
Yeah.
So I'm one of 4. I've got 3 younger sisters.
Okay.
And I had a mum as well. And my mum's like struggled with her weight like her whole life, and I watched that growing up. And then I watched my 3 younger sisters all really struggle with their weight, and my mum was like a therapist every weekend before they'd go out. I look fat in this, why am I wearing that? Like screaming, tears, crying. I was like, wow, it's just like, very insightful to see. And then depending on, you know, what time of the menstrual cycle they were on. Like, I feel bloated here, or I can't do this, or, you know, just like, just probably for like most men who have maybe not grew up around women, probably just insight that you maybe wouldn't typically get. But yeah, they all struggled quite a lot. So when I first started personal training, after like a year, all my clients were women. And I was like, this is odd. I thought I was an in-shape guy at the time. I was like, there's other guys getting trained by other personal trainers. I was like, why are all my clients women? So I done like a bit of an order. And they were like, oh, you're like the first man I've ever spoken to about my menstrual cycle. And it's because you've got sisters. I don't feel judged when I talk to you. You get us great results. And yeah, you know, like one of the first things I would ask women when I was a personal trainer on my consultation, after we'd go through a few things to the big rocks before, I'd be like, do you track your cycle? And about 70% of women said they didn't track the menstrual cycles. And I was like, okay, this is probably one of the best things you can do for your mental health, as well as serving your health and wellness goals. And, you know, so we started talking about the different stages that they can go through in the menstrual cycle. And then they would start to track them. And just like the way you would track food, you start tracking your cycle, it raises your awareness. So like, hey, day 1 to 7 on my cycle, feel fine. Day 14, 7 to 14, yeah, still feel okay. Okay, 14 to 21, oh, my cravings have gone up. I feel more lethargic. I feel more tired. Okay, like let's make a conscious effort of trying to get a bit more sleep that week. If on your workouts, we want to have the idea that we're going to come in and do a high intensity workout. We'll just come in and I'll ask you how you're feeling out of 10. And if you give me like a 6, we'll dial it back to a 6 that day. I'd have some clients come in and be like, I'm on my period, like I don't want to do squats or this. I'm like, cool, we just swap the exercise around. But that relationship was not like, all the women I'd coached said they'd never had that relationship with a man before. Never.
I've had male personal trainers before, and I don't think I've ever had that conversation really. Yeah. And it didn't last long. Like I literally did like 6 weeks block, and that was it. I was like, yeah, cool. Like it does make a difference, I think.
Yeah, and the goal, like, your health is something that like if you don't use it, you lose it. So, you know, for me, if I had you as a client and you came in for 6 weeks and then you went, I was like, my goal is always to try and set people up so they've developed these habits and become self-aware that they can go and use those skills for the rest of life. Because that's what I just see all of this is, you know, what we're talking about, nutrition and tracking food, or learning about your menstrual cycle. These are just skills that you're developing. And the more you develop them, the easier it becomes, almost like subconsciously, to just work with yourself. So like self-awareness is at like the key of it all. But yeah, sisters, mum, all female clients, and then when I went online, it just seemed like the natural step to take. But yeah, I get a shitload of backlash online. I get, who's this guy mansplaining, or what does he know? Stop telling us to do with women's bodies, or why is this guy trying to get women to be smaller? And like that's like, even though like our core offer is weight loss, we've got like over 1,000 reviews on Trustpilot right now, and the consistent theme throughout it is like, weight loss was a positive side effect of me getting my shit together. Weight loss was a positive side effect of me developing these habits and keeping my promises to myself and feeling better. And you know, so many of these women, after they solve this problem they faced for 20, 30 years, you know, go on to leave a toxic relationship or go for that promotion in their jobs because they feel like they've got the confidence back. And just a lot of noise that they have around their weight or their bodies is just gone. And that's what gets me up in the morning and the team up every morning to keep doing what we do. And
it's not just you've got a huge team that work on it now. Like in 9 years, you've grown quite big as well. How many people have you got working for you at the minute?
So 48 as of today. We got 19 coaches who all coach about 70 clients each. So yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, business is a whirlwind, and it's been extremely hard to do this and get to this point. But yeah, the impact that we have, and we've got like a 94% success rate, and we like guarantee that we can get results, which is super hard to do. Yeah, you can take a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink.
94%, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, we not everyone can like sign up. You know what I mean? We have like quite a thorough application process. But if you are ready, you know what I mean, you're ready, willing, and able to sort of take those steps. Like we have got a proven step-by-step method to get you to where you want to be. So our coaching is called, we take people into what's called the Body Smart method, and it's a structured levels-based curriculum. So you start in Kickstart week, you go into level 1, and you go through level 1 through 5. And each time you go through this level, you develop the skills, the habits, and ultimately the right belief system to make a sustainable change. So as you get to the end of level 1, you have to pass a test, your coach has to sign you off, you move into level 2.
It's like going to school.
It is, yeah.
And for
when
health.
And when you get to level 5, when you complete that, you become a graduate. So a graduate is somebody who's hit their weight loss goal, is the healthiest that they've been. They've developed these skills, they've developed these habits, and then it becomes effortless to stay on top of your health then. And that's ultimately what everyone wants. But most importantly, you've got the right belief system.
And is that belief system that you are trying to obviously like instill in people, is that like, because I think when I think of people like a weight loss coach, I think it's someone that will tell me, I can't eat chocolate. I can't go out and eat whatever with my friends, or can't drink alcohol. Like, how do you, I'm sure everyone thinks the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to get told not to do all of those things. What's your thought process around that?
Yeah, so all of our clients eat ice cream, chocolate, have a glass of wine, go to weddings, events, parties. Like, it's life. Like we couldn't have such a high success rate if we were just like militant. Like, it's this strict diet plan. It also doesn't teach you anything. So for me to give someone a diet plan and be like, hey, and just do this, just follow this. It's very effortless because it takes the brain power out of it. It's like, oh, I just have to follow this and I'll get results. But then what happens when your mate pops around on Friday night and you're like, oh, should we get a takeaway? Or, you want to go out for a drink on the weekend. You're like, oh, now I'm quote unquote off plan. So for us, we want to empower our clients to think like, hey, like we can go out, but like maybe I'm just gonna have 2 glasses of wine because I'm focused on, my goals at the moment. Cool, I still got to have 2 glasses of wine, socialise with my friends. Or, hey, we're going to get a pizza on Friday night. We'll just pull back my calories a little bit through the weekend and I can make that happen. So we want to empower our clients to be able to make these choices
again, we keep likening it back to finances. Yeah. But if you know that, I guess you were going to go out, you were going to go to on holiday to Paris for the weekend, for example. It's doable on the Eurostar. Yeah. You were going to go to Paris for the weekend. That week, you probably wouldn't be spending out on eating out or doing any other things in that week because you're thinking, I'm going to spend my money on the weekend when I go to Paris. Exactly. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the same kind of mindset, I guess.
It's just with, and it's not to say there isn't with money, but with food, there can be a lot more emotion wrapped around it. Yeah. And then sometimes that's where we've just got to unpick that a little bit more to get to the core of it. But yeah, for us, having a flexible approach of like what you do the majority of the time matters, not the minority. We try to have a very like 80-20 approach. But most of our clients are typical like all or nothing personalities. Like if I'm not going to go 100%, then there's no point at all. And that's a lot of approach a lot of people have. Like if I'm going to start this kickstart or this fitness thing, I've got to go 100%. And that's the thing that we have to actually just like really preach to our clients. Like that is going to burn you out and you will fail.
That's true. Like a lot of people would think that's a great mentality, but actually you kind of want someone who's probably more chill and will go, this is how I'm going to change my life slowly, because then I guess it's more sustainable, right?
Well, it's just like so the reason it is for a lot of people is like you go to school, if you get good grades, you get 100%, you're doing the best. You go into work, you get all your deadlines done on time, 100%, you're in a great place. So a lot of people think, oh, that's the type of mindset that I need to have towards my health and fitness. And if you were to do like a 28-day challenge, maybe you can go 100%. You can be like, I'm going to hit all my steps, I'm going to do all my workouts, because it's 28 days. There's a finite approach to it. But your health is not a finite game, it's an infinite game. So the health game is a game for life. And you can't expect to give 100% every single day. Some days you're going to only be able to give 40%. And if that's all you could give, 40% is actually 100%, but it's just a reframe in how you think about that. So for some of our clients, we've got kids, we've got busy lives or busy careers, the best laid plans go out the window sometimes, and that can typically, because things didn't go to plan, can lead to like self-sabotage or feeling like you fell off the wagon, instead of going, you know what, today didn't go to plan, tomorrow's a new day, I'm going to crack on and keep going at it. And that's having that mindset of like, my health is something I need to prioritize for the rest of my life, and I can't just keep going 100, 0, 100, 0.
Yeah, no, it is very true. When I've been thinking about my health lately, I've been thinking about the words compounded. So I've always been thinking like, when I am thinking about the choices that I'm making about food, I'm trying not to think about it in like a one moment. So do I eat a salad or do I eat a great big bowl of pasta? Yeah. And I try and think about it in the way of like, I'm like, if I compounded this and I did it lots of times, because that's what habit is, it's just compounding, right?
Yep.
Is that a sensible choice for you to make? Because it's making me go over some of the habits that I normally have, where I'd go, if I pick my meal deal choices, for example, if I'm, I haven't got lunch and I'm going to Tesco and I'm grabbing a meal deal, I always go for the same thing. But to undo and I guess rewire my brain, I'm starting to think with all these habits that I would usually go, like compounding wise, I normally pick that stuff all the time. So is that the right choice, or should I try something different? And I've actually been going to, restaurants and I was jumping on the train in Liverpool Lime Street on Wednesday to go down for an event in London, and I always get from M&S this really nice hot honey salmon pasta bowl.
Sounds nice. Yeah,
it is really nice. I thoroughly recommend it. But then I looked at it and they had a version that was like a potato salad with half the bowl was greens and still had salmon on there. And I was like, I just said in my head, compounding, if I always, whenever I get the train, I always get that M&S thing. What if I always got the one that was with potato salad? Because I also really like potato salad, but it's only half the bowl and then it's got some greens in there and I'm eating more of that. And I tried that and it was delicious.
Yeah.
So it's for me right now, I'm just trying to do I'm not an expert like you, but I'm just trying to do those little things where I'm all these things which are habitual, which I go, oh, when I do this, I do that. I'm trying to go, well, if I compound this and if I were to do it every single time I got on the train, is that going to be a healthy thing to do, or is it not going to be a healthy thing to do? So,
you're having an open mindset to try new things, which is a lot of us are in these fixed mindsets and fixed beliefs. They do with your health and just your finances and everything else, things do compound over time. So on my water bottle here, it says 1% better every day, which it's a Japanese philosophy called Kaizen, which is just continuous improvement is in short what it means. But the idea of 1% better every day, and what we preach to our clients is that if you just get 1% better every day over the course of a year, you get 37 times better. Crazy. So if you just try to become more conscious around your nutrition, and you just focus on getting 1% better every day, in a year's time you will be 37 times better at nutrition. And it's everyone's I can do 1%. You know what I mean? That feels like it's enough.
Feels doable.
Yeah. So just like yourself, making starting to just make either healthier choices or healthier decisions around food. It does compound over time in a really positive way.
Absolutely. Is it true that it's harder for women to lose weight than it is for men to try and lose weight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's all the different gynecological issues that women struggle with. So things like polycystic ovaries, PMDD, endometriosis, then you've got prenatal, and then prenatal depression, all the issues that can come with having a baby and the amount of weight some women can gain. You've got postnatal, so just the issues again that can come postnatal. You've got perimenopause, menopause, and then you've got women's menstrual cycles, which again is not a one size fits all approach.
And let's be honest, men have none of that.
I mean, men's hormonal levels are pretty consistent. So they're all the physiological things that we can talk about. And then the other physiological side of things as well is that men, not always, but men are typically taller, heavier, and naturally more muscular. So men have 10 times more testosterone than women, so we carry a lot more muscle. Now, obviously, there are women who are taller, heavier, and more muscular than some guys, but typically men are. So that means just at rest, men burn more calories. It means when men move, they burn more calories. It means when men work out, they burn more calories. And this is why sometimes you'll get a couple who will go on a diet together or a health kick, and a week's gone by and the woman feels like she's done everything and lost half a pound and the guy's lost 5 pounds. And that's what?
That is me and my husband. Every single time. We'll be we're going to the gym for a few weeks and he will see results straight away. We've got different objectives and different goals. He will see it straight away.
Yeah.
And I'll be there on week 3 this is so annoying.
Yeah, so and they're all the physiological side of things, which make it considerably harder, considerably harder. We were talking about finances as a good analogy on this. Imagine your partner just makes an extra £1,000 a month than you.
Yeah,
that's basically what it is. If they've got an extra 1,000 calories a day or 1,500 calories a day than you, they've got so much more wiggle room. To
work with.
And then from a psychological side of things, if you ask most guys, have you been on a diet before? they're like, yeah, chicken and rice, bro. And it's just, you know what I mean? Or protein shakes and chicken and rice. Or like,
it's not conditioned the same way.
Yeah, the marketing hasn't been the same from such a young age. It's changing. Don't get me wrong. Guys are definitely struggling more now because of social media and Instagram and the pressures to look a certain way. But like most guys haven't been on a diet since they were like 11 years old, or have tried several diets. So their relationship with food and their psychology towards food is very different. Men can be more like, yeah, I've just got to eat that, that's fine. Versus like women, there can be more attachments around it. And then you've got hormones with menstrual cycles and, you know, just a million other things. And then to top it off as well, women need more sleep than men. So, you know, there's just like just another thing in there that just makes it harder because, again, if you need an extra hour sleep, if you don't get that, it can increase hunger hormones.
Why do women need more sleep than men? Like, what's the science behind that?
So all those things that we just went through there, where it was either polycystic ovaries or all the gynecological issues or your menstrual cycle, at different parts of your cycle, you will just need more rest. Then as well, going through pregnancy, again, you can need more rest. So just like typically women need about an extra hour's sleep than men. And this is like a viral podcast clip that we done with Stacey. She was just like, if a woman gets an extra 60 minutes of sleep a night, like her libido will increase by like 25% or something ridiculous like that. So like for any of you fellas who want to let your missus sleep in this weekend, like here's the cue to let that happen.
No way.
Yeah, so it's just like, you know, your hormones are affected massively off how much you sleep. And we all know this, if you have a crap night's sleep, no one feels great the next day. If a guy gets under 6 hours sleep, his testicles shrink by 30% the next day.
Really?
Yeah. There's a guy called Matthew Walker who's a big guy on the whole science of sleep, and he starts his TED talk by literally saying, testicles. He's like, on average, a man's testicles will shrink by 30% if they sleep for less than 6 hours a night. So,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's because they're making your testosterone. And so it's for both men and women. If you are abusing your sleep, it will be messing up your hormones, how you feel, affecting your appetite and everything else.
If you're watching the Talk 20s podcast on YouTube, you'll always see that we have these drinks out on the table. They're Riviera iced tea. And I was honestly so excited when they reached out to sponsor the podcast because I am obsessed, like seriously obsessed with iced tea. If I'm getting a meal deal, I'm getting an iced tea. If I'm on holiday and I don't fancy something alcoholic, I'm ordering an iced tea. And now here in the studio, we have iced tea on tap always, and our guests love it. Riviera iced tea is also low calorie, natural, vegan, and gluten-free. What a bonus. And the peach iced tea from them is genuinely the best I've ever tasted. You can only get these drinks online right now. So run, don't walk, over to rivieraicedtea.com and fill your fridge with something super refreshing this summer. We kind of have already mentioned, which is BMI.
Yes.
A lot of people have a lot to say about BMI.
They do.
What are your thoughts on it?
For general population, it's not a bad metric. Now, don't get me wrong, all of our bodies have changed considerably since then. And, you know, what I would say is like you can be in like, if you're starting to go like above 27.5 on BMI, which is where you're going from overweight to obese, there will be like health repercussions to that. And you might not notice it in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, but it will start to catch up to an extent. Now, again, like, can somebody have a higher BMI if they're like extremely muscular? Like mine's like a 20, just under 26, I think, like 25.5. So I am classed as overweight, which I'm not in terms of like a body fat side of things. But me being heavier than I am now does put extra strain on my body. So I have to breathe more oxygen, I have to take in more calories, which has got more chemicals in, and all of this, like, again, the compounding effect over time. So yeah, BMI for most people isn't a bad health metric, but I wouldn't be something that I would be hyper fixating on as somebody wants to see results.
How much does like body composition come into that though? Because we're all built differently, right? Like we're all got different bone size, we've all got different muscle size and stuff. Because the most fascinating thing, me and Georgia, we're working on a partnership with Randox, and we went and did like a health check with them, and like I'm also in that overweight category on BMI, but for the first time ever, I got told that my percentage of my body that is muscle is 51%, which is so much higher than normal. And I was like, I just thought I was like really, and they were like, no, you've got like, you obviously, and I eat a lot of protein. I do like strength training and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, like I would still like to lose a few pounds, but like for a long time, because my BMI was that, I thought I was completely broken. Do you know what I mean? And that was, it wasn't really helpful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like it wouldn't be, it's not the first thing that I'm going to speak to someone about and be like, hey, this is the absolute metric that we need to focus on. You know, I'm going to first want to understand like what that client's goal is, and then be like, and then start to just look at some of these foundational habits. So like what we talk about before with food and strength training, and really try and focus on like performance-based goals. And if somebody wants to lose weight and body fat, then we're not going to look at BMI as the metric. We're going to look at like the scales, and we're going to be like, hey, like if you objectively want to lose body fat, we're going to need to lose weight, because that's going to be the metric to make that happen. Now, can you be losing weight and building muscle at the same time? Yes, but relatively, like we should still probably see like a consistent drop. So yeah, like BMI is, it's not something we hyperfixate on. It's not a bad metric like overall for general population, but yeah, different body shapes, different body sizes.
So I've even heard like doctors who say like they don't agree with it, and like there's a part, but they obviously have to use it as part of like health processes and stuff like that, and they deliberately are trying not to talk to kids about it.
My youngest sister Nicole is like extremely petite, you know what I mean, like just like she's just tiny, and then I've got like my fiance Steph, who's like half Polish, and she's just like, I'll never have a thigh gap. She's got naturally big, thick, muscular legs. And you know, she always like jokes to me, say like I'm built like a box, you know what I mean? And I'm just, but you know, like she's super attractive to me, and I love being with her. But like she's just different body shapes, and I think it's just not having that like judgment. Like people are built different, and if you were to look at my sister and Steph, they're completely different body shapes and sizes. And if you were to like look at them on a BMI scale, like Steph's going to probably be way higher, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like health is multifaceted, you know, and it's like getting like blood tests done and looking at like maybe there's another great metric which is something to take into consideration, which is, and it says this on the NHS website as well, if you do your BMI test, which is your height to waist ratio.
Okay.
So your waist wants to be no more than half your height, which sounds like a lot actually.
Yeah.
But it's just having that spare tire around the middle. And if it is more than that and you are carrying more belly fat, the risk of type 2 diabetes goes up, heart disease, and just generally like your risk of having more disease as you get older is higher. So that's something to really be conscious of, which is like holding more fat specifically around your stomach.
Interesting. I've got a stat here. After you turn 30, you lose 1% of muscle mass per year.
Yes, which is correct. Yeah. So
tell me why.
So it's just a decline in hormones. Okay. So as you get past the age of 30, you just start to have a decline in hormones, mainly being the one that's going to make you hold on to less muscle is going to be your testosterone levels. So 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but if that is starting to actually come a little bit earlier as well for people, just with the changes in environment that we're having. But it means if you will just naturally start to lose muscle. And it's that whole, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. Now, that doesn't seem like it's going to bother you, like what's 1% going to do when I'm 30 or 31 or 32? But then as you start to get into your 40s, you could have lost a considerable amount of muscle mass. Now, that's going to mean you now burn fewer calories. So you burn fewer calories at rest. You burn fewer calories when you move. When you exercise, you will burn fewer calories. What does that mean? It means it's harder for you to maintain your weight, and it'll be easier for you to gain weight. So now you can start to gain more weight and more body fat and more belly fat, and that can increase, health issues. Then as you get into your 40s, you can start going through perimenopause, and your 40s, it will accelerate again how fast you will start losing muscle. Again, metabolism slows down even more because you're losing more muscle. That'll change how you look as well, your body composition. And then you can start to develop things like osteoporosis, which is basically a weakening of the bones. The worst thing about osteoporosis is most people don't know they've got it until they've broke a bone, and at that point it's too late. So your bones are now just weaker, and the only way to keep your bones strong is by doing strength training. So developing that habit of going to the gym twice a week and doing full body resistance training in your 20s and maintaining that muscle mass and that strength is probably one of the best things that you can do for your overall health. Like a huge message, we push to our clients is, being strong, not skinny. You know what I mean? It's like our clients want to be strong. They want to be able to do a push-up or multiple push-ups and lift weights and And most of these women are strong anyway. They just actually don't think they are. You know, like, oh, I'm not that strong. I don't really want to lift weights. It's like, hey, you just picked up the kid with the car seat, 3 bags of shopping, and opened the front door with one arm while carrying a, 30 pounds of a car seat. Have you picked up a car seat before with a child in it? Weighs that flipping stomach doing a bicep curl. So, loads of women are already strong, and it's just trying to, get away from like being like going and lifting weights is a scary thing, which it isn't.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. The other taboo topic I wanted to talk to you about is Ozempic.
Yes.
What's your view on Ozempic?
So Ozempic is actually which is like it's all the songs that have been written about it and all the I guess like the Ozempic propaganda that's going on. Ozempic is actually the diabetes drug. So it's like Wegovy is the weight loss medication, which is semaglutide is the actual chemical, and these are called like GLP-1s, and they basically slow down the digestive process and make your hunger signals like basically drop down. So you can eat the same amount of food, but you'll just get really full really fast. With this, so I think medical intervention is in all parts of health is useful at times, but the way this is being marketed as like the drug to take, I think is going to cause we're going to look back in 5 or 10 years and be like, fuck, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's because there's so many side effects: nausea, vomiting, IBS, suicidal ideation. Like there's just a whole list of issues. My big concern would be just like the way women have, and I guess like guys as well, but just the way women have been stuck on this like yo-yo fad diet train for 20 years, where it's like on a diet, off a diet, on a diet, off a diet. The advice with Ozempic and semaglutide is that once you start taking this drug, you're on it for the rest of your life. They say that if you come off the drug, there's a 99.6% chance you will rebound in weight and often gain more. So you are expected to start taking this medication forever. And a lot of people go, oh, I'll just take it
for a bit. Or like in Hollywood, it's like, I'll do it for an event or something like that.
And then what happens?
Yeah.
You do it for a bit, you come off, your appetite comes back, but stronger. You gain the weight back and often some more, which is typically what we see with anyone who goes on a weight loss plan. Once they go on a diet, they lose weight and then they often gain it back and gain a little bit more. So now you're just taking, instead of the new fad diet, you kind of outsource the discipline by taking the semaglutide or Ozempic. You don't feel as hungry, you're able to lose the weight. You just go, oh, I feel good, I'm going to come off it. And then the weight comes back on. And don't get me wrong, you'll always be able to pick the needle in the haystack of somebody who had success with this. But I think as a net, this is like negative, and the amount of money that's being spent on it, if we could spend that on food education, food quality, setting our environments up to get people more active, more awareness around just people moving their bodies more, that would have a much larger net positive effect on society than just be like, right, let's get everyone on a drug for life. And because we're in the health space, we see like, God, we're following several agencies that are spending like $5 million a week on advertising for Ozempic, and it's like, that's insane.
Didn't you say that it's become one of like the companies that make it have become one of the fastest?
Yeah, Nova. I think they're based out of Europe. It's the biggest company in Europe now, which is Nova Nordstrom, another 12th biggest company in the world with $700 billion.
Yeah.
They can't stock semaglutide. They can't make it as fast as they're selling it.
Yeah.
It's predicted by like 2030, like 70% of America will be overweight or obese, and they expect over 50 million Americans to be on this drug. They've started testing it on kids as young as 5 years old. So it's it's frightening, when you're starting to see stuff like that, because you've got, an environment and a society that encourages like sedentary behavior, so we don't move as much, high consumption of ultra processed foods. I think 80% of the average person's diet in the UK now is ultra processed, and then because people aren't moving as much and they're eating crappy foods, they're feeling horrible. It's messing up the hormones in their body, and then a gain in weight is a byproduct of it. And then it's like, oh, here's this miracle weight loss drug that you now need to take for the rest of your life. It's you can start to get a bit like conspiracy theory with it, but it's again, for a certain percentage of people, medical intervention is always going to be the benefits are going to outweigh the risks. But if you're somebody that's just like trying to lose like 10 or 15 pounds or just a little bit of weight, I would seriously say approach with caution, because the long-term ramifications of you taking a drug like that and then getting basically addicted to it for the rest of your life is just not worth it.
No, absolutely. And I guess it goes back to this whole topic of the whole podcast, which is 28 days, like the 28-day diet. That's not how you should be looking at your health. It's a lifetime thing that we've got to be looking at.
Yeah. It's like you don't get married for, summer. You know what I mean? Or you don't get married for like a year or two. You get married and you're like, hey, like this is the person I'm going to be with for the rest of life.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's an infinite game. And your health is an infinite game. It's a game that you're going to play for the rest of your life. And the more you can just become aware around your body and the diet and the foods that you eat and become self-serving, not only will that affect how you like think and feel today, but it will just serve you for the rest of your life.
Well, I was already in a headspace of wanting to kind of make positive changes. I think for me as an individual, I've changed a lot since I was in my early 20s, mainly because I get to sit in this chair and listen to amazing people and hear their different points of view on life. And self-development wise, I'm a completely different person. My brain works so differently to how it was when I was younger. I'm so much more positive. I'm very entrepreneurial and I've met really cool people. But the one area of my life that I still find the hardest, and maybe it's because of like the way I've grown up, is health. There seems to be like I've had positive areas finance-wise, or I have positive areas and all of this, and I'm managing a lot of those things well. The thing I still feel out of control of is my health. So for me, this podcast couldn't have come at a better time because it's helpful. And I think it's something that I am very conscious of, because people go to me, I wish I'd focused on my health more when I was in my 20s. And I'm like, okay, I'm 29 now. And I'm like, okay, well, if everyone is saying that, and I know that deep down, that's probably my weakest area of what I am using my, very attuned self-awareness brain for, I feel like there's a block there. Like all of these other parts of my life are very much, I'm like a self-aware and I'm trying to improve, but over there, there's just like, it's just darkness. It's just like in the shadows sort of thing. And it's something that I'm putting on the back burner. I'm like, no, I need to bring it out of the shadows. It needs to be something that I focus on. And that's how the whole like compounding thing has kind of really taken an impact for me. But it is something that I think, I want to be able to live a long, very healthy life. And that involves sometimes, really doing the work. To kind of do that. And so I'm in that headspace right now. So would you, if you had to give me advice?
Well, what do you perceive as your biggest struggles when it comes to your health?
My biggest struggles, I think, is it is that compounding thing. It's making small choices. Like I am so in such not bad habits, but just it's, I'll want something sweet, like a sweet treat nearly every day. Well, pretty much every day. So, and it'll be like,
I probably ice cream every day after dinner, just FYI.
Really?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't want to shame myself. Like that's the thing is that I also really love the body that I'm in. Like I love my wardrobe. I don't feel bad about myself at all. But I do know that there are some habits that are just more unhealthy. I'm pretty certain if you did the height waist thing with me, they wouldn't be the height, that it wouldn't be the half the height.
So what do you, again, like what do you just mentioned there, like diet side of things, like what do you perceive as like the biggest struggles of your health?
Okay, here's probably my biggest problem. I think that I have always been told you have to eat everything that's on your plate. Okay. So for a long time in my whole life, I've eaten past the point of being full. Yeah. Because I've always been told you gotta eat everything that's on your plate. So my receptors to being full are just not on, if that makes sense. So I will make a portion of food and I will try and make sure that I eat the whole plate, because that's literally how I've been tuned. So even if I'm at a restaurant and a plate of food comes out, and especially if you're in like the US, not that I've been to the States recently, but even in the UK now, some portions come out and they're massive. And in my brain, I'm just knowing that I'm eating that whole plate of food, but probably there's a point where I'm too hungry and then I'll feel bloated and all of this kind of stuff. So that's definitely a huge part of it.
So not an easy thing, by the way, but like the fact that like you're aware of like the problems is always step one. So you have to be problem aware before you can become solution aware. And then the next one is to just to raise the awareness of it. So we use it for our clients. It's called like the hunger rainbow. It's basically like you kind of want to be in a point where you're not like at a 10 where it's like you're in a food coma and you can't move. You want to be somewhere comfortably around like a 7 or 8 when you eat. And often, like when you eat, do you typically like watch TV or are you on your phone?
I think often. I am distracted by something.
And like often when we are distracted, we will just eat a lot more. So it's just kind of raising that awareness and be like, hey, right, I'm gonna eat this plate of food and I'm going to be present. I'm going to be mindful. I'm going to, chew each bite of food like 4 or 5 times. I'm going to be as mindful as possible. And when I start to feel full, I'm going to stop. And it's just about raising that awareness and being more present while you're eating your food. And again, if you do that for a long enough period of time, it just becomes a skill that you learn. So it's just everything that we've been trying to go through today. It's like, okay, if you feel like your hunger and fullness cues are just like way out of whack.
I also think it's being the eldest of 4 kids and like, when stuff gets put down on the table, if you aren't the first to eat it or the fastest to eat it, you don't get fed. So I think that mindset also has just bled into adult life where food is readily available, and I'm not fighting my brothers and sisters for that piece of bread or whatever my mum's put in the middle of the table or whatever. I think that is another thing as well, is that probably that scarcity mindset around food, as in like I often think like, oh, I'll eat a lot now just in case I don't have time or I don't have much in later, and I always eat later. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's just about unpicking these beliefs that we have around food or around ourselves, and raising that self-awareness, and then just starting to proactively try something a little bit new. And then over time, you'll start to build evidence that's like, hey, I was able to just eat my food presently and I actually feel great after it instead of stuffed, and I left a little bit of food, and maybe next time I'll just make a little bit less. And when once you do that like 10 times, you've got evidence to say, hey, the last 10 meals I've ate, I was really aware. Okay, maybe one I ate too much. Okay, that's fine. You know what I mean? 9 out of 10 is pretty good. And then you do that 20 meals, 30 meals, 50 meals, 100 meals. And now you're like, oh, my awareness around food's actually pretty good. So it's just, again, raising that awareness, putting the actions in place, starting to take those actions, see the success. And then you have the thing that will change your beliefs more than anything else is evidence. So if you say, I can't lose weight, I can't lose weight, I can't lose weight, or I always overeat, but then you go and do the opposite of that for weeks or months, you now have evidence to say, oh, I can do that. And that's what will change anyone's beliefs more than manifestation or talking in the mirror or positive self-talk, is just evidence that you are who you say you are. So I
think the other thing for me is also in the evidence section is if I ever start feeling like rubbish, like, like for example, if my stomach feels sore or I just know I don't feel great, I've started to write down what the last thing was that I ate or the things I could have had before that obviously don't make me feel good, but I can still continue to eat. Onion and garlic makes me feel like absolute crap. It just does, and it just doesn't have a good effect on my body. And I've gaslit myself into thinking that I've cured it. Like I stopped eating it for a long time, and then I was like, yeah, it's fine. Like I still can. And then I had like a piece of garlic bread the other week, and I was like, I feel horrendous. So I've gone back to like taking it out of my diet and just being really conscious of like that food will not make me feel good, so I shouldn't eat it. You know?
Definitely. And again, it's all just awareness and like knowing what works for you. And like it can, because of garlic and onions and everything, but they're like super high FODMAP foods. So some people do really struggle with digesting them. And sometimes it can be the way they're cooked as well. So like for me, like, and it doesn't matter because I'm not the biggest fan of the food anyway, but like broccoli, if I eat broccoli boiled, fine. If I eat it any other way, I'm in bits with my stomach.
Broccoli?
What?
I thought broccoli always had to be boiled.
There's some people like oven cook it, or some people fry it, and in restaurants they can cook it in different ways, or they can add different things to it. So even just like the way food's cooked sometimes can have an impact on your digestion. But I guess like, what's your, because this is always fundamentally what's going to drive you to take change or not, like what's your why behind wanting to change?
For 50-year-old me, like it literally is that. Like I want to be the healthiest I can be when I'm older, when I want to live. Like my grandparents, they're French, and they have such a different mindset around food. And it feels like they eat a lot because they have like such long meal times that are kind of drawn out, and they'll eat like loads of courses, and they'll have cheese, and they'll have wine, and they'll have coffee at the end of it. Like and meal times is just such a different thing in their culture. And they are both like 80 and 82 at my wedding, like dancing, just fit as a fiddle. And so it's not even my 50-year-old self, it's my 80-year-old self. Like I think the things I want to change right now are habits that I will then have for the rest of my life. I do not care what I look like on holiday next month or whatever. What I care about is how healthy I am longer down the line. So why being that fit and healthy person, 50, 60, 70, 80, why is that like specifically important to you? I feel like we're in a proper therapy session here. Because I want to live a long life. Who wants health problems? Genuinely, who wants health problems? Nobody does. It makes people miserable. I want to live a life that feels like, I keep saying like I want to live life like it feels like you're living in a movie. Like people in a movie don't have health problems. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to feel like you're having to go to the doctors or you're worried about all these different problems. I just don't want to live my life like that. That's basically where it comes from. No, I mean, it's good. And like having a concrete why of like, something that's like
because often you'll say to people like, why do you want to lose weight? And like, oh, I just want to look better, or I just want to feel better. And it's like very surface level, superficial. So the more deep you can go about like, hey, like I actually want to live a long life and have vitality and enjoy myself. And it's like, okay, so like, you know, when it comes to like Wednesday evening and you're meant to go and work out, if you're just like, if your why to change is, I just want to look a bit better, it's like, sod it. Like Netflix and sitting on the sofa sounds a lot more appealing tonight. But if you've got like a really strong, deep-rooted why, whether that's health reason, a lot of people have had like parents who have had health issues, or you want to be there for your kids and have vitality for your kids. You know, sometimes just having these strong whys is just
I want to be like my
important.
mummy, like running after my her grandkids, like or great grandkids, like in the pool, like that would be amazing. But my why hasn't been that for a really long time, which is probably why only to this point am I actually making change, because it was all those surface level whys. If you'd asked me my why, like even 6 months ago, a year, I'd have probably said, oh, I just want to look better. Do you know what I mean? I would have said exactly that. So
but it's good. It's to peel back the onion and to try and get something, and then to write it down. Like for us, we have our clients write their whys down, and we stick it on the fridge. We put it as the phone screensaver, and we have it there as like, and your why can change, and it will change as you go through different parts of your health journey. But like, it's just to have that, like it's that motivation, something that comes up all the time. It's just like, that's your motivation. Like when those time when you've got to dig a bit deep, it's like just ground yourself back on your why and right, I'm getting this done.
Love it. Well, we always love asking all of our guests, especially when they come in from an expert kind of angle, what the one thing is that they're working on at this moment in their lives, because we also have a really big motto at Talk 20s that nobody's perfect. Everybody is working through something in their life, and there is something that is not probably perfect in their life that they're trying to work on. For you, if you wouldn't mind sharing, what is the one thing in your life that you're trying to get better at? You're 1% better, for example.
Yeah, God. I mean, this might sound a little bit like ridiculous. So I've got a lisp and I'm dyslexic, which I don't often just say too publicly. I mean, it's obvious maybe I've got a lisp, but I say words sometimes like back to front. My grammar's off. I use Grammarly on my phone app, and I've used it for like 5 years. It's massively helped. But I say did and done in the wrong past, like presence in terms of how they are. And my girlfriend will correct me, and because she knows I'm open to learning it, and this sounds as little and ridiculous, but there's been like several things over my speech over the years that she's tried to like help me with. But I literally feel like I've got like Tourette's every time I hear someone say did now. I just like get like a shock because I'm trying to say it the other way around. So just like I do a lot of obviously content and media and what we do. So I'm always trying to improve how I talk, and I think videos of me like 5 years ago sound a lot more Scouse than I do today.
Nothing wrong with that. We love a Scouse here.
Scouse and proud, you know what I mean? But it's might just it sounds simplistic, but just like really just trying to work on my speech, because when you've had a way of speaking for 32 years
that must
of your
be
life,
so hard to undo. Like really hard.
It literally feels like it's something that's like anytime I literally hear someone on the TV or say did or done, I'm just like, did.
And to the rest of us will probably be like, that's just a sentence, but to you it's obviously like a really clear thing that you're kind of obviously trying to...
So it's just like, it's trying to break in the habit of being me, which is tough, especially with the way you speak, because, that's a big part of who you are. But I think it's nice to know that see, that's a really nice way to look at it, because, for some people, for me right now, it's health, but for you right now, it's like changing a really small thing to me, small, to you, big. Thing, the way you speak, like everyone is trying to do something to get better, whether you realize it or not. And I think, we're all not the finished product, but we, 1% better. Of course, Kaizen.
Yeah, exactly. Jaymie, you've been amazing. I've loved chatting you on the podcast. It's been super helpful for me, and hopefully very helpful for our listeners as well. But if you could look back at 20-year-old Jaymie, this was Jaymie before Body Smart existed. If you could look him in the eye and give him just one piece of advice that would see him through his 20s, can be health related, can be anything, what would you want to say to him? You're only allowed to say one thing.
Not necessarily your fault, but always your responsibility.
I love that. Yeah. What a great quote. Where did you get that quote from?
I think I originally read it in Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. But, not that like victim mentality, like just won't serve you. And you can have had the shittest run in life, and you could have had a car hit you, or your boss has done this or that, and you can feel like that all of it has happened. And it may not necessarily always be your fault, but it is always your responsibility. And when you have that mindset and you start to, instead of pointing fingers, point thumbs. It really does puts you in an empowering place to make things better. And that for me is empowering. Like, it doesn't matter what happens. If I take responsibility for it first, I don't blame anyone else. It allows me to take a step forward.
Absolutely. And I think it's like that quote that nobody's coming to save you. It's on you, isn't it, to figure out your life and what path you want to take. So yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Jaymie. You've been an absolute delight to have on the podcast, and keep doing everything that you're doing. Body Smart is great.
Thank you.
Amazing.